For people who have disabilities and who rely on assistive technology to access digital components from these services, it basically means that digital accessibility is an option.
They have told our entire group of marginalized individuals that we don't matter and that we can just wait longer.
Welcome, everyone, to the WCAT podcast. Today, we are going to have a Cups episode where we talk about some of the things that are going on in the digital accessibility world. Today's podcast might not be as energetic as usual because we've got some heavy topic to talk about. I'm sure that you've heard about the Title II compliance rule that was changed. Let me just set the groundwork. In 2024, I believe, a rule was passed that basically said that all local and state entities should have their digital components accessible by April and May of 2026. What happened was literally right before that deadline was due, the DOJ passed another rule. I think it's called an interim rule that basically said, let's push this deadline back a year. So, from an overarching point of view, nothing has really changed because compliance is still a requirement. It's just that deadline to meet that level of compliance has been shifted to April of 2027 for entities which serve 50,000 people or more, and May of 2028 for entities that serve less than 50,000 people. So that's what happened last month with the Title II compliance. This month, something just as significant happened, if not more so significant. Um, there was a rule that said that all entities which are involved in the HHS, which is Human and Health Services, so hospitals, doctor offices, healthcare services, their digital components were supposed to be, again, with the other rule, accessible by May of 2026. And they kicked the football down the road to May of 2027 for organizations with more than 15 people. With more than 15 employees, and then May of 2028 for organizations with less than 15 employees. So, what does that basically mean? For people who have disabilities and who rely on assistive technology to access digital components from these services, it basically means that digital accessibility is an option. That means that it's okay for our demographic of individuals to be marginalized. I can kind of understand what the government is thinking. They probably did not have a lot of entities that were compliant, and so they wanted to make sure that they had the time. But from where I'm standing, someone who has been blind all my life, someone who relies on assistive technology every day of my life, someone who is a blind parent and have kids, and I have my own health issues, that means to me that if I try to activate and access a web portal for my most previous doctor visit and it is inaccessible, they have until 2027 to fix it. So if I hit a wall because of their digital inaccessibility, I'm just out of luck. That's what that means to me. Ellie, what does it mean to you?
It essentially means to me that they have told our entire group of marginalized individuals that we don't matter and that we can just wait longer, which is a really hard thing to sit with. Like, I don't know about you, B, but like the first time I felt like I was, something that could be delayed, someone that didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things was in middle school. When I started middle school, they didn't have the braille signets up on the wall that tell you the names of rooms, like, hey, this is my social studies classroom. It's B108 or whatever. Or in my case, the more problematic thing was that the bathrooms did not have those braille labels on the wall. So me, shy 11-year-old girl, found myself walking into the boys' bathroom on more than one occasion before they finally, after a big fight and about 8 months' time, got those things put up on the wall, which was humiliating for me. So that was like the first time in my life where I was like, yeah, I obviously don't matter as much as everyone else because this was a fight. Why was it a fight? And I think that our government entities are in like the most generous way trying to make sure that people have enough time. But I think the main thing that's talking here is money because making these things compliant costs money, mostly because they were not built with accessibility in mind. Anyone who works in the accessibility space will tell you that the time in which to put in accessibility is right from the beginning. When it's built in from the beginning, it's easiest. Whenever you have to retrofit it to an existing product or system, it's going to be more expensive. It's going to be more time consuming. It's just going to be overall more difficult than it would have been had things been made that way from the beginning. It's going to be harder to retrofit a ramp onto a building that has all these spiral staircases and um, architecture that would make it difficult to do so once it's already built. Um, Whereas if it had been constructed with that in mind from the beginning, it would be a lot easier. The same thing applies to digital accessibility.
So you just a bit of levity here. I when you were talking about spiral staircases, I don't know why, but Hogwarts popped into my mind, and I'm just trying to imagine Harry Potter rolling down a spiral staircase ramp. So, but
In Harry
anyways,
Potter, it would have been super because remember when they would try to get up the stairs to the boys' dorm,
oh, that's
or
right. It
girls'
did turn
dorm,
into a ramp. That's right. Yeah. So,
and it would turn into a slide.
yep. Hogwarts. Hogwarts' new slogan is "We accessibility matters to us first and foremost." But
Yeah,
sorry, nerd moment over. I do totally agree. It's so from a parental point of view, it's very, very concerning. I need to, if I want to see the results of my last doctor's appointment, or if I want to get in contact with my doctor, or if I want to look at my child's history of medical issues, and if something is non-compliant, then I'm just out of luck. And then the same
yeah,
goes for governmental stuff. If there is something going on in my city and I need to report it, like a traffic light is down, or I don't know, what if I want to apply for a city job? I'm just out of luck because their services are not accessible because they have 11, 12 months to make it accessible. And they kicked it back. They've already kicked it back once. They've kicked it back twice. Next year, what's to stop them from kicking it back again when that deadline comes around? Because the argument can be made that, oh, we've had time, but it's not enough time for us to make it accessible. If you guys want it to be accessible, give us more time. Well, we don't want to give them time. Like this stuff should have been made accessible from the get-go. It's like building Legos, right? You don't take down a wall to fix something at the bottom floor level, uh, when you could have just built that in from the first place. It's forward thinking. It involves planning, but when you do that from the get-go, then it just totally excludes this entire process from the completed product. Um, so it's very, very discouraging just to hear that from the government, through their actions, that this stuff is obviously of less value to them than other things that they've done. I hear about the government spending money on different projects, this, and it's just like, well, and here I might be talking from a place of ignorance, so I do apologize if I come across like that. But why couldn't they take that money for that beautification project of the city and put it into to making sure that their products are accessible? Because yes, it would be nice to live in a pretty city, but From my point of view, I would rather access my city's digital components than to know that there are plenty of leafy green trees near where I live. Might be
Yeah.
different for someone who does have visual acuity, because they can appreciate that. But just from where I'm standing, it just, doesn't really make much sense to me. So,
Yeah.
um,
I think one of the reasons why it keeps getting delayed, and I know I'm probably speaking for a lot of us here, is this general assumption that we are always having people, some kind of helper person to help us out when something isn't accessible to us. So we always have family members or friends or someone whose job is to help us out whenever we run into some kind of accessibility barrier that can just swoop in and help us overcome that barrier. And the truth is that most of us don't. Like, if there is an agency for helping people, helper people, um, because I don't know how many times I've been called a customer service line and been like, hey, your stuff is inaccessible and therefore I can't complete this necessary task I need to do. And they're like, well, don't you have a helper person who can help you? And like I said, if there's an agency for helper people, I'm not aware of it. So yeah, I think that speaks to why this is one of the reasons why they keep pushing this back and keep assuming that we can wait. And
um,
it is hard. Like,
yeah.
I don't know about you, but like what B said, when your child has medical issues and you're dealing with schools that need like proof of immunization, proof of this, proof of your last doctor appointment, um, you have to interact with those portals all the time and those web apps and such. And when they're not accessible, it's a huge inconvenience because then you can't access the information that you need without, again, pulling in some external person to help you out. And it takes away a lot of your independence, a lot of your autonomy. And we already, especially like, depending on your disability, we are blind. So the main barrier we have is driving, but everyone has their own thing that they struggle with. To lose even more of that autonomy to an inaccessible system just makes life all that more difficult.
Absolutely. And in today's world, things are moving more and more towards a virtual world. I mean, I say that as I have like a massive pile of paper mail in my mailbox. But it's mostly just junk mail. But uh, I
Mhm.
say that because things are, moving more towards things like online portals, online platforms like that. And it becomes very, very disheartening to know that people don't see the trend that is being set. And that trend is that it's okay to change this rule. It's okay to move it down the road so long as it's convenient for the government. That's the trend that's being set. The ball has already started rolling. The boulder is heading down the hill. And so we, as individuals who care about advocacy, must do our best to get in the way of that boulder and stop it cold rather than let it build momentum. Because if next year comes around and those deadlines are due, what's to stop them from moving it back to 2029? And then when 2029 comes due, what's to stop them from moving back to 2030? Nothing. That's why we have to do our best as individuals to get in that boulder's way, to stop it cold turkey, to speak up, share posts on Facebook, reach out to your policymakers. I think you can go to regulation.gov and post comments about these rules that are being changed. Um, I think with the 504, that's the rule that was changed with the HHS, Human Health Services. You have until July 2026 to voice your opinions on this rule. Please go and do so. Make your opinions known why this is not okay. Even if you don't have a disability and you're one of our listeners, just know that an entire demographic of individuals are being discriminated against. And in today's world where inclusion is so important, please help us voice your opinion why this is not okay. And it doesn't affect just blind people. It affects people who have no hearing. It affects people who have mobility impairments. It affects people who have cognitive disabilities. And so the range of individuals with disabilities is quite wide. And so we have to do our best to get in that boulder's way, stop it so that they can't do this anymore. We need to make sure that when a rule is set, it's set in stone. It can't be modified, changed.
Yep. And we have to keep in mind that, people with disabilities, this demographic we belong to, has always been given like the smallest seat at the table, like the furthest one. And we have the smallest voice. But that's mostly because a lot of us can't speak for ourselves. Like we, as people with disabilities who do have the ability to articulate ourselves, who do have a voice, we need to speak up for those people who can't. Um, because who else is going to advocate for them if we don't? And this fight, it started with people with disabilities. It started all the way back in 1974 when they put Section 504 into law. And it wasn't an easy fight. Those early on trailblazers in the disability space fighting for those rights, they had to do so much to even get it enforced. Like in 1977, the ADA wasn't even a thing yet. The Section 504 was not being enforced correctly. And so these two women, Judy Heumann, who had polio as a child, and Kitty Cohn, who had muscular dystrophy, they led this effort where they took over a federal building in 1977 for weeks. They sat in there and they had people bringing in food, bringing in supplies. But I'm talking people in wheelchairs, you guys, people on oxygen and ventilators. They sat in that building for weeks to fight for those rights. And then in 1991, everyone's familiar with the story of how the ADA got signed into law. That was people going to the Capitol, people with disabilities, crawling up the steps of the Capitol. That fight's not over. That was just the beginning. And now it's up to our generation to continue that fight so that the generations that come after us do not have to fight as hard as we do.
Absolutely. It's so important for us to build with the future in mind. Those people, City Combs, Judy Heumann, they had the future of individuals with disabilities in mind when they were trying to fight for these rights. This is why you have wheelchair ramps on buildings with stairs. This is why you have those braille signs next to the men and women's bathrooms, so you know which bathroom you're going to go into. Um, and as we move towards a more virtual environment, it behooves us as individuals to make sure that these environments are also accessible, especially since if you have a disability, most likely you are very, very natively skilled with your AT. But that skill set does not mean that you are able to automatically navigate barriers that get in your way. Because what might be a problem for one demographic of disabled individuals might not be a barrier for someone else. This is why the WCAG success criteria is just floor level compliance. Accessibility is the least common denominator. We want to move beyond accessibility, hopefully into the realm of usability, which is let's make sure that not only is this accessible, but so that it's easily used, so that it's very, very intuitive for individuals to navigate these systems, no matter what disability you have. Um, Let me give you an example. For keyboard only users, for example, someone who is mobility impaired, they might use a switch control to navigate a web page. And what the switch control does is that it just pretty much presses the tab and shift tab key. And if this switch control cannot activate a link because that link is not in the native keyboard tab order, it's literally preventing them from not being able to access that page. It's blocking. I'm a JAWS user, an NVDA user, screen reader user, and I can easily navigate to that, even though that link is not in the keyboard tab order. But for someone who is a keyboard user, that would be extremely, extremely blocking. Um, so I just, want to highlight that even though it's accessible for me, it might not be accessible to someone with a different disability, and vice versa. Um, so
You also have issues that impact multiple types of disabilities. Like on my city's website, the electric bill at my city is basically all handled through the city, through their municipal portal. So whenever I go to pay my electric bill, I have to get either my teenage daughter or I have to use that AI app called Guide to press the submit button on a payment because that submit button is not keyboard accessible. It only responds to mouse click. So if you are a keyboard only sighted user or a screen reader user, you are unable to pay your bill independently because that submit button only responds to a mouse click.
and that's the level of the government care. Um, I'm sure that it's been reported to them, but that's they haven't done anything about it. It's been months, right, Ellie? You've been dealing with
Oh
this poor for
yeah,
months.
months and months and months. Like I've been lived in the city now for about 2 years and it has not changed.
Yeah,
Imagine waiting 2 years and imagine like this is the sad thing about being a member of such a marginalized demographic. The Civil Rights Act went into effect about 10 years before the Section 504 did. Um, and today, if you are discriminated against based on your race, they are not going to tell you, oh, you need to wait 60 or 120 days to have that complaint dealt with. It's going to be immediate. If you are a person with a disability, you're told you need to wait, and that's a
which
shame.
yeah, which again just shows that our marginalized community is a secondary thought, right? Had this been a racial issue or some other civil rights issue, it would have been dealt with immediately. But because we are less visible, it makes it easier for the government to be like, well, we need more time in order to assess all this stuff so that we can make sure that you get the full benefit. Well, that's nice. That's nice. That's a nice thought, but the thought process is inherently wrong because this should have been something built into it from the get-go, not something that becomes an afterthought where you have to scramble and try to make sure that you're in compliance. Um, so as 2027 comes near, we're going to be hit with a ton of things to be made accessible because people are going to be scrambling. Now that these rules have been pushed back a year, I guarantee you, and I've seen this happen, that a lot of companies who were doing digital accessibility are getting less work because these Title II and these HHS uh, organizations are breathing a sigh of relief and are loosening the reins pretty much. And because they think they have a year. But what's going to actually happen is that because governmental websites move extremely slowly, they're not going to do anything for a few months. And then all of a sudden they're going to realize, oh, that deadline is coming up quick. And then they're going to scramble and be in panic mode, trying to put out all these digital forest fires. And
Mm-hmm.
so, what can you and I do in the interim? If you are a person with a disability or you care about inclusion, go and make your voice heard. Look these things up, right? Because Ellie and I, we're just two people who know a little bit about this stuff and just want to share our experiences. That's pretty much it. I pretty much live under a rock. I don't know much about what's going on in the world. So do your own research so that you're not just hearing it from me, and then form your own opinion. If you disagree with me, I would love to have discourse on it. I would love to talk to you about it. I think it's so easy in today's world to be a keyboard warrior, where it's either your way or the other person is the devil, pretty much. I'm okay if you disagree with me. That's totally fine. I love it because then we can talk about it. Um, so long as can accept the fact that our opinions may differ and can do so respectfully, I'm down for any conversations about this. And then if you are also wanting to get into digital accessibility space, this might be a silver lining for you because with these upcoming months where all these organizations are going to be slow in getting their materials accessible because I think they have a whole year or more to get it accessible, this is your time, your opportunity to join programs like what we have called the Certified Accessibility Program, the CAT program, or other programs throughout the country and learn what digital accessibility is, learn how to test it, learn how to report it, how to document it, how to write something professionally and actionably and give it to a developer so that they can fix it. This is your chance to gain skill levels. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to deepen my understanding of the floor level compliance that is WCAG. I'm going to work on getting a couple of other certifications under my belt, deepen my own understanding, increase my knowledge, increase my value as a tester, and reduce my ignorance of what's going on in the accessibility spaces. Ellie, what are you going to do?
Yeah, I'm gonna do the same. I'm gonna continue to learn HTML code, CSS, and JavaScript. I'm gonna get my CPACC certification. I currently have my DHS Trusted Tester certification and our own CAT certification, but I think the CPACC would be a good one to add. Um, because you guys, I think one of the reasons why this did get kicked back is because organizations are waiting until the last minute to get these things compliant. And because the digital accessibility space is a growing field, but it's still a relatively niche and small field overall. So the more digital accessibility testers that we get out there and the more that have disabilities, that have this lived experience that they deal with every single day, the better that we're going to be prepared to help these organizations get their things compliant within a timely manner. That way, even if they come to us last minute, we can help them get this stuff dealt with before the deadline. And then that with less panic going on, there's going to be less pressure on the government to push things back.
Absolutely. And just kind of to echo that, we've been on a couple of client calls in the past, and about 80% of our team at Accessibility Officer have some sort of disability or another. It might be even higher than that, but it's quite obvious that most of us have disabilities. And when they come on the call and they see a bunch of people using screen readers and us sharing our screens and showing them, oh, this part of your website's inaccessible, this is how you can fix it, so on and so forth. They see that. They see the lived experience. It kind of opens their eyes because at that point it's kind of almost like lip service until they see it actually and they see it in real time when they're like, oh yeah, so I'm trying to fill out a form on your website and I literally cannot access it. Here's how I would do it as a screen reader user. And they see it and they go, wow, I didn't realize it was that big of a problem because they just don't have that wherewithal. And so it's up to us to educate, not in an aggressive way, because I feel like, you catch more flies with honey than vinegar, right? So do it in a way that can open their eyes and show them how this affects people with disabilities, and also just allows them to reach their own conclusions as to why digital accessibility is so important. Um,
Yeah, because this is not just about like fighting for our rights. The reason why we have fewer rights and are treated in this manner is a lot of it is due to misconceptions, ignorance, and the fact that we still have a lot of work to do in order to change the narrative about people with disabilities. People in general expect less of people with disabilities. They expect us to not be caregivers, but to need caregivers instead. They expect us to not be doing things independently, but to be getting help doing those things. And we need to each and every one of us, do our part to change that, to make people expect more from us. That way they give us more.
Absolutely. And even if you have a disability and you're listening, I would encourage you to do the same thing, right? Because I think that, and just, being honest here, I feel like sometimes people with disabilities are their own worst critics. So don't think of someone who has a different disability as different. Just think of them as a person, not someone who is deaf, not someone who has a cognitive disability. Um, they're all just people. We're all just people. And if we start thinking about people as people rather than, oh, this person's blind, oh, this person's deaf, then I think that will start opening the doors for a more inclusive world. Because people are, yes, you and I, Ellie and I are partially defined by our blindness because it's such a huge part of who we are. But when we lack the ability to do certain things because of our ability, and the government has the power, the control to change that, and it doesn't, it's a huge slap in the face. So I would
Yeah.
encourage you all, to speak up, um, join advocacy groups that fight these things. Make your voices heard. Do not be silent. If you don't have the strength and the power to voice your opinions, ask if you can help in other ways. There are plenty of things that can help. You don't need to be the front-facing man of one of the local advocacy groups, but you can ask if you can help them with anything on the side. If you're an HTML coder, hey, can I make your website more accessible? Um, that is a huge help. If you are someone who's skilled with social media, hey, can I help, run your social media, make sure that your posts are, um, you know, nice, polished, and reach the most amount of people as possible. Everyone has their own skills to bring to the game, and we want to hear your voices. If you're listening, we thank you so much for your time. I hope that you were able to gain a little bit of something from Ellie and I's small nuggets of wisdom. We're so appreciative that you are tuning into our WCAT podcast, Spilling the Tea on Digital Accessibility. And we hope to hear from you next time. Ellie, do you have a couple of words of wisdom to close us off with?
Yeah. So my words of wisdom are that we change the view of people with disabilities by living our truth, living our normal everyday experiences, because the lens with which we are viewed a lot of times tends to fall into two buckets. Either as a blind person, I'm seen as like an inspiration, as some kind of like daredevil person, or I'm seen as helpless. And so we need to kind of live our truth, show everyone that we're just normal people who happen to have a disability. And I think the other thing that we need to keep in mind is that this is the only demographic that anyone can join at any time for any reason out of the blue. And it's the only demographic where everyone is headed eventually, because if you live long enough, you're not getting out of this life without some form of a disability.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for listening in. And just remember that we're all just people. You're just a person. And we just want to make sure that we all are included in what's going on in the digital accessibility space. Thank you all for listening. Spill the tea on digital accessibility.
Subscribe to the WCAT WeCat podcast on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Links below.